to turn the recording around, I like to do some cleanup on the recording, and then I need to export it and put it onto YouTube so that everyone can access it easily. And I leave it open on YouTube so that anyone can access it on the Galileo YouTube channels. So it will be there. I will make sure that you get a copy of it. I'll send the video to you. And I'll also, as I mentioned, send a link out to the slide presentation. As such, I'm going to go ahead and get started with sharing my window. In just a minute, you should be seeing my slide presentation here. And hopefully that's there and clear. Well, actually, you're seeing Galileo. My slide presentation is right next to it. And again, we're talking about new facets, new features, reviewing our 2022 Galileo December release. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about some navigation improvements we've made and some additions that we've made to the Galileo tour. I'm also going to share along the way some other things that we're thinking about with those improvements, the tour, and continuing to make some improvements to internal navigation, both with Bento and other things. Still have some ideas that we're processing with that. I'm going to show you the new concept of standalone bento pages. And what I mean by that is previously when you clicked on a bento, it opened in a modal window. And now when you click on it, it simply opens in your browser with a full page view with navigation to take you back to your bento results. And also multiple facets, filters, and other things are now available there as part of that bento navigation, as well as other features like shareable permalinks for bento results or searches. Go into detail on all of those things. Then we've added some new bento search content, and we've added options to add the Digital Library of Georgia, and we've made the Digital Library of Georgia in all of sort of the grown-up views in Galileo. The Civil Rights Digital Library, which is a subset of the collections in Digital Library of Georgia about civil rights movement. The Points of View Reference Center and Learning Express or Prep Step have all been added as bentos that are either defaults, depending on your institutional affiliation, or can be added locally when available. So I'm going to talk through all of those things and also process any questions or comments that you all have as we go through the material today. I'm going to take several logical breaks along the way during the presentation just to share with you some time to let you open up your mic, ask questions, or to respond to any questions that you might be adding to the chat as we go through. That said, please, if you have a question as I'm talking, go ahead and add that question to the chat. I may not see it immediately, but we'll make sure that we grab that question, read it out so that everyone can see it and we can have it on the recording, and I'll respond to it coming out of the presentation for a break, for a question break. So moving along here, as I mentioned, we made some navigation improvements, and all of these are much easier to show you just in Galileo than they are to show you here on slides, but we have made some updates, some changes, and some additions to the Galileo tour. And we've added a how to use this page button right under the search box so that it's nice and clear where one can access the tour information. And we've added more about bento in the tour functionality as part of what we've done there. So, and again, the tour offers context-specific help on the bento search pages. One of the things that we would like to do is when there are relevant help articles in our FAQs, we're going to go back and take a look at this and perhaps link out to some of those most relevant help articles. So if someone wants to go into more depth about what you're seeing here on the page, you can. Just to taking a brief break, make sure you are muted, please. So we have somebody who is very loud coming over. Thank you so much. So we will be able to provide some more and additional help via link outs to specific help articles that we're maintaining and make that context specific help a little bit better and a little bit more relevant for users. Okay. Just coming here and showing you that we've added, chat tour information that specifically calls out things like we've added this new Digital Library of Georgia. And we've added limiters and facets to the Digital Library of Georgia bento. We want to make sure that when people are in bento and looking at a specific standalone bento page, they can see specific help and how to do things there as well. So let me go ahead and launch into that, and then I'm also going to launch into taking a look with you all at the standalone bento pages and some of the navigation changes and improvements we've made there. Go ahead and log in here today. I'm in the Galileo staging site. I'm going to log into Athens Regional Library System so that I'll look like I'm coming in from a public library, which will also have the Galileo views. I know we have a lot of folks from public libraries and K-12 libraries today. Actually, that's not what I wanted to log in as. Bear with me. Wrong one. There we go. Well, it should perform the same, I think, I hope. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and click on, well, no, I'm in the wrong Galileo. Bear with me. Sorry about that. Story of my life this week is getting into the right thing. Okay. Athens Regional. Okay. We'll just have to close out my browser and, well, I'm not going to bother with that. Let's go ahead and get started. So here, as I mentioned, the tour pages are available. If I click on tour, it will go ahead and engage that tour for me. And again, we've added some new information, but also have some of the same information. Won't go all through the tour. I'm going to go ahead and do a bento search. I do one I've been doing often lately, which is volcanoes and Iceland. I'll go ahead and click that search and run it. So here we are with our search results for volcanoes and Iceland. Note that when I engage the tour here, click on that tour page. And this is another thing that we're going to be working on very quickly, as we decided that while the tour is there on every page, we need to make it obvious that the tour does different things on every page. So we're going to be working on doing that. But the, again, tour tells me everything I need to know about the bento search pages, including any new features and functionality, like the Digital Library of Georgia bento that is available now here. And then also when I go into a bento results page, so this is going ahead and introducing also the standalone bento box concept. I want to look at the Galileo bento box for ebooks. As you can see, it is now opened in a new full window, but I have navigation back to my bento results. But as you can see here, I can engage the tour again and get more information again, specifically about what's happening and what I can do and what features and functionality are available to me in the bento standalone bento page via the tour. Again, pointing out some new navigation that we have added here in the standalone bento pages. I'm going to go ahead and click on all bento results, and you can see that that takes me back to those bento results here. Again, the whole idea and the whole concept here is we've replaced that idea of the modal cover over. So now when I click on a bento box, it's presenting me with a full page of results with easy navigation back to my full bento results. So if I wanted to choose results from something besides scholarly articles here, if I want to look at my encyclopedia article results, I can just go back and choose those encyclopedia article results. Again, with the whole concept here being that we want to work with results that are pre-sorted on material type. I've had a lot of feedback recently. Well, I really like things being sorted, and it's somewhat helpful that things are sorted by material type. But what about sorting materials by subject, which I think is a really great key question that the bento filters address here. I'm going to go ahead and look at my ebooks again, just to kind of show what we're dealing with here with the bento filters, and that I do now have the option to limit by subject here within the bento filter. So again, that functionality, we're going to continue to work on and expand that as we review this today. But that is greatly improved to be able to search and filter, and we'll dig into that more in just a few minutes. As far as navigation goes, again, I showed the tour and the fact that it is now there is now tour information available at pretty much every level to make sure that users get all the information they need about how to use the bento search. And what I want to do is spend a bit more time on the specific navigation improvements that we've made within a standalone bento page. I'm going to go ahead and click here on scholarly articles. Just sharing with you that there is this all bento results, as I've shown a couple of times already, that will return me back to my bento results page. To go back to my scholarly articles page, I can just go ahead and click on that pill button again, or I can click on the top of any bento. Just making sure that everyone's clear that if you're browsing through your bento results and you click on the bento at the top, it will give you your results. Other navigation improvements that we've made, there's a limiter to full text anytime you're in the bento, and I can just rerun my search really quickly to limit those results to items that are specifically full text. In the context of the bento, I can also take my search out. This is functionality that we're continuing to work on improving, but I feel like we've made some improvements to it here in this release. We have the link out to the classic search, and what this does, there is some link out no matter what type of box you're in, whether it be out to the classic search if the content is coming from the EBSCO Discovery Service, or to Digital Library of Georgia. If you're in the Digital Library of Georgia bento, you can link out to the source and search within it from within the standalone bento. So for example, here I want to redo my volcanoes in Iceland and the classic search, the classic EBSCO Discovery search. I click on that classic search button and it takes me right out to it, where I get more utility if I want it or need it to apply more filters and other things and do more limiters here. Most of the limiters that you find here are going to be available in the bento, which you'll see in a few minutes. But I do want to point out that it's very simple to take your bento search, redo it, and access that search in the classic search without having to redo a lot. So the next things that we've added in terms of improved navigation on the bento, and again, this was a big one for us to add, particularly I'm in news, and this is a place where news, this edition is particularly relevant. So I have my first article with the relevant search applied, April 2017, then I have March 2021, then 2010. It's going to be much more valuable to me in most cases when I'm doing research to view my news results with newest content first. So I'll click on newest, and that's going to change my sort. And I'm going to have a January 8th, 2023 article about cruising the majestic fjords of Iceland and meeting Carol Cookwood. So I can sort also by oldest. So if I was looking for older material and I wanted the oldest stuff to pop up first, I have an article here from the N2 Press Wire from way back in December 31st, 1969. Then I can toggle back and forth between newest, oldest, oldest to newest very easily. But then I can also go back to relevance if I so desire. So we've added that ability to sort content quickly and easily on the page that was missing from bento previously. That functionality is now there. So we're really pleased with that. Another piece of functionality that we have added is the ability to expand or contract the amount of content that appears on the abstract. Currently, I have expanded this, so it is showing most, if not all, of the abstract for some fairly brief abstract articles here from news sources. But I can contract it. You probably won't even see it be contracted all that much by just clicking, and it will reduce the size of that. And it's not really doing it here because it's already pretty small abstracts. We'll try that again. Let me go back to my bento results. Scholarly articles sometimes can have really lengthy abstracts where this applies a little bit more, and you can see it a little bit better. I currently have the contracted version. But yeah, you see right here with number 2. I got a lot more abstract information when I went to that expanded version of the search results list. I want to point out while I am talking about this toggle for abstract size, 2 things that are sort of related, not related functionality that I want to point out. If you prefer one of these to be your default, whatever you do last in here, your web browser should remember it unless you clear your cache and cookies. Your web browser will remember, hey, I prefer to have my abstracts shorter. If I want that condensed view, whatever I log out of Galileo, when I close my browser, it will leave me with the condensed view. If I were to have left it in the wide open view, the more expanded view, if that's the last one I use and I come back to Galileo, it's going to remember that expanded view. I want to point that out also. I'm going to go back to my bento results here, back to the Galileo main page. One of the things that we have fixed and have had fixed for some time that I want to point out that works with that same functionality is people have keep asking us, well, I want it to remember what kind of search I prefer. I prefer classic search. I want it to remember classic search. So in order to do that, it's the same thing. Whatever you used last is what Galileo will remember. So if you want it to be tuned to classic search when you log into Galileo the first time, or whenever the next time you log into Galileo, you just make sure that you've got it set to classic search when you log out and close your browser, and your browser should remember that the next time you log into Galileo, you should get offered the classic search first. So I just want to make that clear. Those are sort of fun functionalities that are, again, related, not related. Going back to my bento search here, I'm going to change things up a little bit. Well, no, I'm going to be boring and do the same search again. I'll change things up in a little bit. So I've done my search here again for volcanoes and Iceland, going back to, again, new functionality available. We saw this. Again, remember, your browser will remember what you're doing here. You have that option to link out to the classic search. You have the full text limiter and the ability to sort by relevance. What I'm going to do, I've covered a fair amount of ground fairly quickly, as I want to do. I'm going to come out of sharing for a couple of minutes and just see if there are any typed questions or any written questions coming through, and give you all an opportunity to ask questions here while I am back in the classroom, if you will. Questions so far? Feel free to open your mic and speak up if you have a question, or feel free if you'd like to type a question in the chat. Give you all a minute or so just to ask any questions that you have, and then we'll go back and we'll talk a little bit more about bento filters. Interesting observation from Devera. Devera observes, I noticed in the civil rights database, I think you mean the Civil Rights Digital Library, Devera, it gives a warning. I think that is a good thing. Yes, it is becoming more of a standard practice in archival collections. And you see this also if you go into the Digital Library of Georgia with digitized collections of historical materials online. It is certainly possible in some subject areas that you can run into content that has offensive language, that has historical language, that has violent images. So that, yes, thank you. So we wanted to make sure, and Sheila McAllister at the Digital Library of Georgia has done a great job with that. There is also an option now if you are bothered by a piece of content and you would like to share your thoughts on that with the Digital Library of Georgia. There is a form on the Digital Library of Georgia page or the Civil Rights Digital Library page where you can submit information, your thoughts on any content that you might encounter in those websites. Now, I'll say that I think that type of jarring material, it's good to know that it's there. It is sometimes important historically to be able to see that stuff and access it. But at the same time, yes, I agree, Devere. I think it's a really good thing that our digital library collections have done over at DLG to provide us with that information and that option. Thank you for that observation. All right. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and I'm working on re-upping my login here so that I can show you all a few more things. I'll be right back. And any other questions? All right, going back to sharing my screen here. Thank you all so much. And back here in my slideshow, get my presenter view here. Sorry, got all twist it around just to make sure that I'm covering everything with you. We talked about standalone bento pages, and now we're going to talk a little bit about bento filters and facets. So standalone bento pages, again, with improved navigation, facets, and filters. The facets and filters are over on the left-hand line of the page next to the search results. Another thing that we did add here with our update, we also numbered items. This was a great piece of feedback that we got from our Galileo Development Advisory Committee, was that if you're working with a patron in a virtual reference environment or answering an email and you want to compare results, it's sometimes helpful to have those results numbered. So now when you're looking at results in the bento arena, those results will be numbered for you. So great job from the development team taking that piece of feedback and running with it. It was the fine folks at GMA, Georgia, Middle Georgia, that gave us that feedback. So the bento filters, again, it kind of going back to what I said, I have this link out to the classic search. I'm going to show you some examples of both these link outs in different environments. But notice that the filters are paralleling the filters basically that one would see in the EBSCO discovery search. When I'm in the Digital Library of Georgia or the Civil Rights Digital Library bento, those filters and facets are going to parallel what one would see in the Digital Library of Georgia, because we are connected directly to that Digital Library Georgia or Civil Rights Digital Library source now. So the filters are going to look more like what you see in those specific databases. So most of the content that we have in Galileo and in the bento search comes from the EBSCO Discovery Service Index, but some of it does not. I just want to make clear that you might see a different look to the filters on the left-hand side of the screen when you're looking at a bento versus what's from one bento to the next. Shouldn't be too jarring though. Should make sense as you're looking at them. Popping back into Galileo search, just a second, we'll take a look at the different filters that are available. I'm going to go ahead and log in again. This time I am actually going to do the right login and log into Athens Regional Library. Here we go. Oh, I'm actually going to take a step back once more. Sorry. You think I never even planned for these courses, but I do. There we go. Here we go. So here we are in Athens Regional Library. We're in the full view. I'm going to do a bento search just to show you around a few more things. I'm going to do Georgia and aviation and history. I'm kind of stringing a bunch of terms together with a Boolean search. And it's filling in my results here, pulling them from that EBSCO Discovery Service API index. And so here we are in bento. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the scholarly articles again, just so that we can see the filters that are available there. And again, how these filters parallel what one would see in the EBSCO Discovery Service. I'm going to go ahead and point out, I am in Athens Regional Library, so it should limit my library catalog results to the Pines catalog when I apply that filter. That filter is something that we're going to work on. It doesn't need to be there for every library because every library does not have their library catalog results available here. But we're talking about that, and we're going to make it clear. Don't be confused by this. If your library catalog, if you don't have an EBSCO Discovery Service custom catalog, most academic libraries do. But if you don't have one, then you won't have results. Most of our public libraries have this via Pines. So just be aware that you may not get results when you limit to library catalog only. And we are going to take that designation away, I think. We haven't fully discussed that yet for libraries that don't have that option available as a limit. So I can limit right off the bat here to peer-reviewed journals. So I can go ahead and click that, and you'll see that it'll go ahead and apply that limit. Publication date. This was the biggest thing that you all asked for as a limiter that you wanted to see. We can limit with clicks to past year, past 5 years, or past 10 years. This custom range pre-populates automatically with the range of the search results that you have. In other words, The bento search results here for scholarly articles that I got when I searched Georgia and aviation and history, the oldest result is from 1913. The newest result is from 2023. I can change this, obviously. Don't have the nice fun slider that we get with EDS, but I can go ahead and click on filter and filter my search results down to that particular publication date range. I can limit to specific publications. So if I want to look at some content from a specific publication, I can do that. I can limit to a specific subject, and we took a brief look at this earlier. We can limit by lexile range, which is something you all have been asking for a long time. This is available also in the EBSCO Discovery Service in the classic search, but it is definitely now available in bento. I can limit by lexile range. These are pretty hefty lexile ranges. So you can limit by lexile range. Now note that all content isn't limitable by lexile range. For example, the ebook content, that lexile range isn't applicable yet there. We're hoping that EBSCO will get there eventually, but they're not there yet. I can limit to a specific publisher. So if I know a publisher is really good in a certain area, I want to limit to that content, I can. I can limit to a language. Geography. Now this limit will apply and let this one, geography, is interesting because this is something that people have been asking for specifically. I want my articles about Russia to come from Russia. Now this will give this field keys into, I think, 2 or 3 different areas that I've seen and looking around. It looks like it will go into the publication location. Sometimes it will go to geographic coverage, the coverage area of the specific article, but sometimes it will reflect the creation information. So it can be, subject to interpretation once you click on a geographic affiliation here. But then I can also see what databases the content is coming from. So if I wanted to limit to content in a specific database, like if I wanted to see just the content from History Reference Center, I can click on that. And now I've applied. You see I have these filters applied. I can turn them on and turn them off accordingly here on the left-hand side of the screen. So if I want to turn off the peer-reviewed filter, it's off. The publication date filter, I don't want that on anymore. Turn it off. And the database filter. So you can turn them on and off as you go down. Some things I know that could be better. I would love it if we could limit to multiple publications at once. We can't quite do that yet. It's something I'm hoping that we will be able to do eventually. So it is a little bit challenging right now from a development perspective and the environment that we have to limit with multiple items in some of these areas. Just let you know that's something that we'll continue to think about and work on. But I think the bento limiters that you can apply are very powerful. When I first saw this, when the developers had it ready for initial testing, I was just so impressed by it, so blown away by it. It's a very powerful tool to be able to sort quickly and easily and in a pretty and clean environment versus the EBSCO Discovery Service. Not that it's awful, but I just feel like this environment things a lot easier for researchers who maybe don't do this type of thing all the time to quickly look at a specific kind of content and apply limiters to it. Go back to my all bento results. I saw a chat flashing, so I'm going to step back and see if there are any questions in the chat. Mike White, are you here? Are there any questions in the chat that have come up? I don't know if my backup is here today.
Yeah, I'm here. There's
Okay.
one question that came in earlier, but Josh answered it, but I can go ahead and read it. Rebecca Berger asks, what does the term facet signify in this context? As opposed to a filter, and Josh said we've been using facets to refer to filters. I don't know if you want me to read what he.
Yeah, go ahead. I see.
Okay.
With multiple things that you can do. So a facet is indicative of multiple directions you can go in, which I think is a good way to think about it. Subjects, journals, content provider. So a subtype of filter. Yeah.
And there's also been another question, a general question. When should we direct students to use the bento search and when to EDS? In other words, why use the bento?
So I point students to, not that I work with students every day, I just worked with K-12 teachers yesterday, for example, on this. I did a training session. And oftentimes when assignments are being made where you're asking students to look for specific types of content that faculty do, oh, I want you to find primary sources. I want you to find uh, scholarly articles. Those terms are often mind-blowing for first and second year students in college, and being able to automatically go ahead and sort that content in the bento search is often very helpful for that level of researcher. Uh, I think also the bento search, I have been using it more and more in my own when I'm doing research or when I'm doing support and trying to test out various things because, like I said, I feel like the power of being able to apply those filters after you've already applied the sort of native bento filter, if you will, that sorts content by material type. I just find that to be incredibly powerful for even a more advanced researcher. Now that we have the filters in that bento context, we're able to slice and dice the content and refine it a lot more quickly than we can in the regular EBSCO discovery service. Now, that said, that's a great question, Don, because you got me thinking too, because the two are less different. I feel like right now, my opinion is that our interface with the standalone bentos is a bit cleaner and is a bit more powerful. One time, though, and I just kind of alluded to it, where I would use the classic search, Don, certainly there are going to be advanced researchers, people working on PhDs, faculty members that are used to doing research, people that want to string together lots of terms and apply different limits in an advanced search. You're going to want to start there. It's not, the bento is not necessarily for everyone, but what I was thinking, a good example of when specifically I would use the classic search over the bento would be if I wanted to quickly apply in those facet areas that Josh is alluding to. I want to apply multiple. I want to look at multiple publications. I can still do that in the EBSCO Discovery Service, where there are still challenges for us to do that in the Galileo bento environment. So if I break it down in simplest terms, Don, I would say that novice researchers, people who are new to doing research, or people that feel that they can leverage results faster in the bento environment, by all means, use it. But the classic search is there and will always be there. We will never move away from the classic search as an option we provide. But we want to be able to provide the most search options and availability possible based on the feedback that we get from users on some of the deficiencies they see in other search environments. So that's my long-winded answer to that. I hope it's helpful. I also added some specific recommendations. There's a Galileo FAQ on the bento search where I have a list of recommended situations where one might use the bento. And so I can send that FAQ to you all after the fact as well. Sloan Clark asks, what is the new Galileo password? Please contact us offline about password questions. You can submit a support request to Galileo, and I can show you where to do that once I come out of the Q&A time. Any other questions? That's a great question, Don, and I hope that was a helpful, if long-winded, answer. Mike, if you could let me know, am I still in my, I think I'm still sharing.
You are.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up another standalone. This time I'm going to go ahead and pull up the new Digital Library of Georgia standalone bento, just to show you the difference here. The filters are available, but there are different ones, filters and facets here. These are paralleling what one would see in the Digital Library of Georgia site itself. Note the custom date range comes in as 1528 to 2032. I don't know why 2032. Don't ask me. I don't know. There might be a date that's proposed to be arranged, and I don't know on that one. But the sort by relevance, the compress or expand options, all the same options that the permalink option, which I'm going to go into in a few minutes, the all going back to all bento results option, all still there in the Digital Library of Georgia, the new Digital Library of Georgia box. Note that we have been and we're thinking about and working on how we might expand this into more general bentos. But because we have sort of a finite number of different material types that we see in Digital Library of Georgia, we were able to add a symbol that tells you kind of what type of material that is. So if it's a photo, it'll have a photo icon. If it's a paper, it'll have a paper icon. So those are helpful additions that have been added on there to the GALILEO, the new Digital Library of Georgia bento. As I pointed out, if I want to search my search at DLG directly, again, this is going to work a little bit differently. It's not going to go out to the classic search. It's going to take my search into the Digital Library of Georgia and provide me those results. And as you can see here, this is where the filters parallel. Okay. So that is the GALILEO Digital Library of Georgia search, just to kind of show you how those different bento windows might have a different set of options. The databases window also, for example, has the option. I'm in the databases that came up in that bento search for Georgia and aviation and history. The more options will just simply take me out to the database search itself. Going back to more value adds here for the bento, one of the last features we've added that I want to make sure that you're aware of and see in action and get a chance to ask about. I'm going to go ahead and do a search for SAT guides. And I'm in Athens-Clarke County Library. This is where I'm getting another opportunity to show off one of our new bentos. For those of you who didn't know, also, we've added the Consumer Reports bento. Consumer Reports is such a popular publication in our public libraries. It's now a default bento option in our public library GALILEO display. I'm going to go ahead and click on Learning Express here. When I search SAT guides, Learning Express is certainly a resource that has this type of content in it. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Learning Express bento. This comes out of the EBSCO Discovery Service, so so I can refine in the classic search. But I have here a list of SAT prep stuff that could be helpful to my patron. Say I'm helping a patron in virtual reference who has sent me an email saying, I want SAT help. So I just have the Learning Express bento. Here, I have results that I'm not saying I would be, but I have results that in theory I'm satisfied with. And I want to share these results quickly and easily with my patron who also has access to GALILEO at my library. So I'm going to go ahead and click on permalink here at the top right. And the two permalinks that are available do two different things. So in the reference context here, I can now grab this permalink, this permanent link for this exact search. If I copy this, I can send that patron or that student, whomever, I can send them those bento results directly. And if they're off site, they'll just need to authenticate. Once they click on that link, it'll prompt them to log in. If they are in the library or they happen to be on campus at a campus, when they click on that link, it'll just take them right on in. So that's the permalink here. The second permalink option is, I think, another, again, potentially very powerful use for the bento. When we talk about ways the bento can be used, why use the bento? I am a faculty member and I am teaching a class where I want students to specifically look at Georgia history materials, and I want them to really focus in on looking at primary sources. Obviously, SAT guides isn't where I'm going to do. I'm going to be fun and celebrate the day a little bit and search Georgia and football. If this is a topic of interest to me and I want to see articles and information about the history of football in Georgia, I can click on my Digital Library of Georgia bento here. And I could, again, use that permalink to share these results. In this first link, copy them, share those results with my student or my reference patron. If I want to have my students do additional research, well, maybe they did a search topic on Georgia and football, but later in the semester, they're going to do a search on Georgia and research on Georgia and agriculture. It's a very broad search, I realize, but I'm going to redo my search, get a different permalink here. It's going to have my Georgia and agriculture results. But hey, I want them to do some research on their own. So I copy this link. I can send, embed, or post a link here to the Digital Library of Georgia standalone bento search page, and they can search in the bento on their own. Now, I will say that one of our next steps with this concept, and one of the things that we've been thinking about for a while, we have our Galileo embedded search box. Right now, this is just a link to a specific type of search. You could do this with scholarly articles. Hey, I want my students to really focus on scholarly articles right out of the gate. I want them to search for that. I'm going to provide my students with a search that lets them just search scholarly articles so they can get a feel for what that is. So here in the Digital Library of Georgia search, I can send this search to my students and have them do what I want them to do. Same with a scholarly article search. If I want to go back to my search all bentos here, grab, do a search, and grab that scholarly articles bento, and have them search for some more content specifically on scholarly articles. I copy that. I can put it on my website wherever and go to it. But again, the idea, this is just a link right now. We hope that we can make this something that's a little bit more embeddable so that you could have a live search on your website or on a learning management system page that would do this same thing. But for right now, it's still pretty powerful as an ability, having the ability to send standalone bento box searches or search pages to students or patrons. We saw a lot of value and a lot of potential value in that. If you don't want to remember to add that permalink every time, or perhaps you wanted to add multiple options to a course page, for example, while you're working, if you go down to the tools area now in Galileo in the shareable links area, this is an area where we've shared multiple different types of links before, but we have also added links now, shareable links to public library bento search pages. So if you wanted to add specifically a search for your high school view to primary sources, you can copy that link, and now you have that search box. So those are available in your tools area in the shareable links. If you scroll down to the very end of shareable links, you'll be able to capture those bento links for those standalone bento search pages as well. Okay. So just a few more things to talk about here, just making sure that I covered everything. Making sure we were aware of the different sources. I mentioned the Digital Library of Georgia, the Civil Rights Digital Library, our new bentos that are available. We have also added the Points of View Reference Center. This is that content that we added earlier this year. The Points of View Reference Center is content that gives that pro and con point of view. For those of you in the K-12 circuit who always like to ask me about when are we getting SIRS Issues Researcher, well, this isn't SIRS Issues Researcher, but it's pretty darn good at providing some of the same types of content. So if I search a controversial issue like climate change, and I want to see different points of view on that, if I go to the points of view bento, it's got 293,000 articles. You could probably narrow more, but I can see some of the types of content that come from the points of view reference center here. So that points of view bento is designed to do that. And also for our public libraries and for our technical college libraries, and for all of our libraries, have it available as a bento box that you can add. I mentioned my SAT guide earlier, Learning Express content and Prep Step content for our public libraries and for our TCSG libraries is now available as a standalone bento. There is a Learning Express bento or a Prep Step bento, depending on what you have at your particular library. So I can get that Learning Express content just by clicking on that Learning Express bento. And I can also, again, with that permalink, if somebody just wants to search in Learning Express, or if I want to fast track people searching in Learning Express, I can do that by sending them that Learning Express bento link. So I think that's all the bentos. Oh, Civil Rights Digital Library, I did not show in detail, but just letting you know, we also added a bento for the Civil Rights Digital Library. So this is, I always love seeing the content that's available here. I think I'm spelling correctly. Forgive me if I'm not. Probably not. I have too many R's. Search here for Coretta Scott King and Stevie Wonder. I can go into the media, or I can go into Civil Rights Digital Library. This is a wonderful video I watched one time. Out of curiosity, there's this great conference and concert. This is from the WSB TV News Film Collection, and Stevie Wonder appeared at this concert at Morehouse College. So there's information about Stevie Wonder's appearance there in that WSB TV News clip. So just showing you the types of things that you can get there in the Civil Rights Digital Library. The Civil Rights Digital Library, in terms of year ranges, covers the 50s and the 60s, or you can do a custom range, but generally covers these two date ranges, covers from the 50s through the 60s. So we decided to limit by decade instead of trying to really be granular in that area and the years area, but the custom range is there and available as well. So if you're looking for content within a specific range, you could get to it. So that is the new bento content that we've added. Just a few more thoughts here. We're at a minute over. This is Digital Library Georgia, Civil Rights Digital Library. I'll make sure that you all have these slides. If you need to add and update any bentos locally and you don't have Galileo admin access, just let us know. Send us a support ticket, and we'll be more than happy to work with you on that and get your bento set up in a way that you like. We're also happy to work with you on setting up and reviewing our Galileo admin training and getting you set up as a Galileo admin if that's something you would like to do at your library. Just let us know. I thank you and a welcome for any other questions. I wanted to say to the person who asked the question about current Galileo password, again, I'm not really going to answer that in the context of a training course, but just send us a support ticket here. Just go to the Galileo support area by clicking on support and the big red button at the top of the Galileo page. We'll get back to you as soon as humanly possible with the new password information for your institution. Sorry that you don't have that currently. Going to go ahead and close out. Any additional questions? Well, thank you so much for the positive feedback. Glad to hear that you all are loving some of this. Oh, thank you, Mike, for putting that in for Sloan already. Much appreciated, and hopefully I reinforced that with sharing the link. Well, thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up again and going about 2 minutes late. And thank you all for staying a little longer. If you've got any questions or if you want to stick around and ask anything to follow up further, I am more than happy to hang out for a few minutes and let you do that. Otherwise, feel free to take your leave of us, and thank you for joining us. Seeing nice thank yous coming in. Thank you all. Good day.